0, 1. Let's get started.
Hey Inspirers, welcome back to Elevate Life. If you're new here, I'm John Register. I'm a former elite athlete who lost a leg but found a new movement. That's my leg. A U.S. Army veteran who learned how to adapt through uncertainty. And a business executive who believes that transformation doesn't come from avoiding adversity. It comes from amputating what no longer serves us so that we can elevate to what does. Now, this show is for leaders who are walking through high-stakes transitions. If you've been newly promoted, suddenly challenged, or facing a massive pivot, you're in the right space. Because these aren't just moments of pressure, they're portals of potential. That's why I created the Elevate Life Executive Strategy Session, a monthly room for executives to sharpen soft skills, strengthen, deepen leadership clarity, and gain practical tools that turn stress into strategy. You can sign up right now, right here with the link below, and that's where we build on what we learn right here together. Now, this episode features digital strategist and business visionary Sonia Dumas. And let me tell you, her insights on platform disruption, overwhelm, and audience ownership are not just relevant, they are urgent. If you've ever felt like you've been building your legacy on someone else's land or drowning in responsibility no one trained you for, this conversation will meet you right where you are and move you forward. So let's dive into Inspired Insight number 1. Inspired Insight number 1, overwhelm isn't always loud. Sometimes it's dressed in Italian suits and sits quietly on the head of your to-do list. This week I asked Sonia Dumas what she had to amputate in order to elevate for her success. She didn't even blink. Overwhelmed, she said, and then she took us there. Let's listen in.
You've had so much success, but what have you had to amputate in order to elevate to that success?
Oh, you have made me think about that. I've been marinating, simmering on it for a while now. And the word that came to mind for me was overwhelm. Had to amputate overwhelm. And I've had experience with it, growing teams in the past, but now more than ever, it's come up again. And I think that word can't be underestimated because what do you do with it? So overwhelm. Mind if I tell a story about how I see overwhelm?
Absolutely. Love it.
All right. So back in, so many of you may or may not know, my background is actually hotel development, luxury lifestyle boutique. So high intensity, big teams, big budgets, multiple personalities, all the things. I'm a professional cat herderer, but these cats are in the best Italian handcrafted suits. And but that was my world for almost 20 years. And every so often, when I started very early on, I had a team and I would hear them talk about being overwhelmed. And usually, and when you're not, and it was my first time being a manager. And so I just thought it was like, well, okay, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about this, right? So trying to approach it from look, the volume of work that happens when you're building a hotel, it doesn't stop. Like the fire hose is turned on and it's not being turned off. There's no way to stop it. So what needs to actually happen? And what I found over time is it wasn't enough to just talk to people to say, okay, let's, have our powwow moment. What I realized is overwhelm is not really about the workload. It's not about the volume of work that's coming at you. It was actually an issue of no clarity about what's the destination? Where are we heading with all of this? And there was also no milestones to be able to say we made it to the next milestone as we move to this destination. And the destination when it comes to hotels is very simple. You open, you get to opening date. So no one's confused about what the destination is. So we know we had to open, but how do you get to open? Well, there are hundreds of thousands of microtransactions that happen in order to get to open, for everything from construction to purchasing to design to architecture to everything you got to do, sign off with the city. So many micro things that had to be done. And what I found that my team, for what we did with branding and strategy and procurement, is I had to show them, because I was the leader, I knew that there were milestones along the way that also included rest periods. I knew that there were 12 weeks of intense purchasing, branding, designing. But once the PO was released, once the money was paid, guess what? It gets quiet because everything's in production now. So you get a rest period. And that gave my team a sense of, let's sprint to the next milestone, because once again, the workload's not shifting. The volume of work that's coming at you is actually going to increase. But when you understand there's milestones along the way, and when you celebrate those milestones along the way and show them that, guess what, when we get to opening and the client loves what we have done, we're going to do this again because they're going to award us 5 more hotel rooms.
Sonia said something that stopped me dead in my tracks. Overwhelm isn't really about volume of work. It's about the lack of clarity around where we're going and how we know when we've arrived. That line, that hit me, because how many times have we felt buried, not by what we're doing, but by not knowing if we're doing it right or fast enough, or if we're even on the right path. She reminded me that people don't burn out because of effort. They burn out from running with no markers, no map, no milestones. If you're leading a team through uncertainty, that matters, because if your people can't see the next rest stop, they'll assume the road goes on forever. I remember when I was training for the Paralympic Games, and this is my Paralympic leg that I used to win the silver medal with. We didn't just practice every day. We planned intervals, sprints, recovery, sprint again. If my coach said, just run hard every day until the games, I wouldn't have made it. The rest periods weren't a break from training, they were the training. Sonia's story made me realize this principle is just as true in leadership. What if our job as leaders isn't to reduce the load, but to reveal the rest stops? Not to ease the pressure, but to illuminate the next milestone. Here's why this insight from Sonia is critical, especially in today's leadership environment. In high growth, high change environments, tech startups, scaling teams, mergers, turnarounds, leaders aren't overwhelmed by tasks. They're overwhelmed by ambiguity. When there's no visible path forward, no mini wins to celebrate, and no signals that we're progressing, even the most high-performing teams begin to stall out. This isn't just theory, it's performance psychology and business truth. Look at Amazon's early fulfillment center teams. Jeff Bezos didn't just say, let's dominate e-commerce. He broke it down into visible wins: lower delivery time, higher picked accuracy, customer smile score. Each small milestone became a proof point. It gave teams a sense of progress and purpose. Or take Netflix during the DVD to streaming pivot. They didn't say, let's change the industry overnight. They mapped and celebrated small wins, licensing deals, user experience tests, mobile streaming pilots. That strategic clarity through uncertainty is how they kept pace with rapid innovation without collapsing underneath it. So the takeaway, when we don't define what winning looks like in the short term, people will quit, even if they don't leave the building. Sonia's insights is a case study in my resilience action model. She recognized that overwhelm was recurring and wasn't about effort, it was about direction. In the revision, she reframed success not as managing everything, but as leading through clarity. She brought in milestone markers and defined what done looked like at every phase. In the renewal, she gave her team something most leaders forget: permission to rest. Not because they're weak, but because the sprint had a finish line. Then, they were ready to sprint again. When leaders name the next milestone, they give their teams hope. When they name the rest stop, they give their teams endurance. That's what renewal looks like in real time. Where is overwhelm hiding in your team? Not because of too much to do, but because no one knows where they're going next. What's the next milestone you can name out loud? And when is the next moment of your rest and the rest that your team deserves to celebrate? Inspired insight number 2, overwhelm is a signal to systematize. Overwhelm isn't always a result of doing too much. Sometimes it's just the consequence of doing too much without a system. This week, Sonia Dumas reminded me that calm doesn't come from capacity, it comes from clarity, and clarity can be built. So let's listen in.
How can we as leaders find those rest periods?
Yeah.
How have you found that, Sonia, when you are seeing that, and but from your team, How did you recognize that within inside of yourself with the overwhelm?
Yes. So I've been a strategic thinker since a child, right? For those of you who don't know, I have 4 brothers, and my first business was selling them their own toys. I figured this out by 9. And they bought. It was the best business I ever had. And so one of the things is with me is when I entered my career, I was literally thrown. So I remember my director was my director for about 6 weeks before she went to an offsite. And she was like, I'm going to train you on everything I need you to do. And then you're off on your own. So I had like 6 weeks of management. And mind you, at the time I was, I think I was like 22, 23. And it was like, all right, you're off on your own. And here's 5 local hotels. What? Okay. First step, let me go talk to the GMs. Built the relationship, found out what they needed. And over time, what I found out was, why am I feeling overwhelmed? So I'm good about checking in with myself. I feel overwhelmed. I'm stressed. I'm working late hours. No one's asking me to, but I am. And I have this fear that if something doesn't get done, the ball's going to get dropped and I'm going to get yelled at. And, and so that's what was going through my, 20 something mind. And at some point I realized I'm overwhelmed because I have a lot of tasks to do. And I'm fearful I am going to forget one of those tasks that's very important to the entire process. So at that time, this was early 2000s, y'all, like the technology we have now compared to then, my word. I literally found a like $79 software that was like a note-taking and recording, and it could do auto date pop-ups and reminders. That was genius back then. And I had to ask, can I spend $79? And the VP was like, yeah, go for it. And I used that to track all my tasks, to pop up the dates when I needed to follow up. And all of a sudden I felt a sense of calm because I knew I wasn't going to forget anything, even though my mind was sharp. So it freed my mind to then start thinking about the bigger picture of what this GM wanted or what the hotel needed. And so at some point, what interestingly happened was my desk became empty, because everything was in a central location and I could go to that little $79 software, see where everything was at and make the updates. And I mean, I was literally like, double typing, right? Like writing to myself exactly what I did. But anytime my VP would ask, well, what's going on with this? Boop, pull up the little screen. Here's what's going on. What do you need next? Like, oh my goodness, what is this thing? I said, this is my Overwhelm decreaser eliminator.
For $79.
For $79 back then. I was like, best investment ever. And so it was realizing that overwhelm is a part of fearing you're going to miss something, especially something critically important. So how do we keep track of that? But then also it was recognizing, okay, I can have multiple projects, but what are we doing? Where are we going? What are the milestones? And at that time, because I literally had no real direction, it was more like, I'd go to my director and VP just to sign off on an expense report. Like that was it. And so what I also recognized at the time, where was I going with that thought? Was that not only was it about tracking, I had to create my own milestones because there was no one to create it for me. And so I had to check in with like the GM and say, what would be a major win as we move along, or even a micro win? And they would let me know. And so I would set that up as, okay, that's the next milestone. Okay, now that we got that done, what's the next milestone? And because a hotel, especially these hotels, they were already open and operational. Operations goes 24/7. It doesn't stop. So then I started learning about the operations of, okay, now there are quarterly goals, there are yearly goals, and started working through that to say, where do I play a role in this? And so it was always asking questions more so than what's the next quarter, what's the next big goal? And so we would work towards that. So I learned really early on to piecemeal that, and that would give me the sense of calm and focus I need. So that way, when other projects would come along, insert them right into the system. Because I had one, but I had to create it based on, I need to chill out. So I need to chill out because I'm too young to be stressed.
Sonia was in her early 20s. No map, no roadmap, just five hotels, a skeleton team, and a 6-week training crash course before the director disappeared offsite. And like most early career leaders, she did what high-stakes performers do. She hustled, she worked late, she overfunctioned. Not because someone asked, but because she feared missing something crucial. And when the anxiety crept in, she realized something most senior leaders still forget. Overwhelm isn't a failure of ability, it's a system of unattacked responsibility. That $79 piece of software didn't just organize her workflow, it saved her sanity. I had a similar moment after my amputation, trying to rebuild my life, my career, my sense of purpose. I wasn't short on ambition, but I was drowning in uncertainty. So I built a system. I couldn't control my physical condition, but I could attack and track my rehab milestones. I could break down my new identity into micro wins. I could measure not just my goals, but the moments I needed to recover and regroup. That was my amputate to elevate moment. And like Sonia, I didn't wait for someone else to hand me the roadmap, I made one. And that's what leaders do when clarity is nowhere to be found. We build it anyway. For us as business professionals, let's call it what it is. Most executives who are overwhelmed aren't actually overworked. They're over-responsible, over-assumed, over-tasked without a unified system to track, sort, prioritize what actually matters. It's one of my Achilles heels as well. In a high-stakes transition, new role, new team, new initiative, it's easy to slip into survival mode. You grind harder, sleep less, answer every ping, hold everything in your head because that feels noble, until your brain becomes a battlefield. And when the stress compounds, innovation flatlines, communication suffers, and you become reactive instead of proactive. And in the C-suite, that's dangerous. It's a dangerous place to lead from. Consider Howard Schultz of Starbucks when he returned as CEO in 2008. The company was overwhelmed by scale, too many SKUs, too many stores, too little clarity on the core. He paused growth, shut down underperforming stores, and realigned operation around one core value. It wasn't about doing more, it was about focusing better. Overwhelm at the top is a silent killer. It looks like strength, but it's a saboteur. And those who don't face it, fix it, and build around it, they flame out or get quietly replaced. Here are 3 strategies for resilient leadership. Let's walk through Sonia's moment through the resilience action model that I built: reckoning, revision, and renewal. Reckoning, admit that overwhelm isn't noble, it's noisy, and noise kills momentum. The first courageous move is saying, this is too much, and it doesn't have to be this way. Revision, create your system, even if it's messy at first. Track the milestones that matter. Ask your team what micro wins they are aiming for. Make visible what used to live only in your mind. Renewal, build a rhythm of clarity. Revisit your systems weekly. Trim what no longer is useful. Make space for think, not just do. That's where executive elevation lives, not in hustle, but in harmony. And consider this as an action step. What's the one task, the one trigger or tension that's been living in your head rent-free? Can you name it, track it, build a system to offload it? All right, that's lesson number 2. Let's get ready to move to lesson number 3. Inspired insight number 3, instant disruption. When the platform pulls the plug, what if everything you just built disappeared overnight? Not because of failure, but because the platform you trusted pulled the plug and didn't even leave the lights on for you to pack. We have been learning insights from Sonia Dumas, the founder of Inbox Income, and what she said about the risk of building on borrowed digital real estate really hit me in the gut. Let's take a listen.
You said when you said that everybody is the billionaires, how they're shifting, right? And I just saw, like, was it yesterday or maybe it was 2 days ago, that Facebook said, get your stuff, get your videos down, because our stores, that's it. We're only going out 30 days now. Everything else, so pull what you can. Because they just made a major shift. Now, all those people that had all that content, that were those courses and classes that were built on that engine, immediately it's just gone. Done. Got to figure out a different strategy for it. And this is just, as we're doing the show, it just happened. It's going to be a major disruptor for both folks that have built their platforms on other people's real estate. Yeah.
Right.
So that is, whew, I can't even imagine.
And on one end, it's been spoken about for so long. Hey, you're renting. You're not even renting or leasing. You're squatting because you're not really paying anything. We've all been squatters on social media and getting paid very well. Don't get me wrong. Right. And so I was just talking with another friend. I said, we all have some level of social media Stockholm syndrome, where we are just bound to our captors and they're going to take care of me. And it's like, no, honey, you've been held hostage. And at one point you were being fed very well. You make a post, 110 people, 110% would see it. Now you're lucky if 2% see it, and you still think your post is being seen.
Right. Yeah.
Isn't that Stockholm syndrome? Like, no, that's not reality.
Not reality.
Not reality, but instant disruption. That's one of the phrases I use is today's freemium. Today's free is tomorrow's paywall. And so it's not just because guess what? Facebook is tired of paying all the storage fees.
Right.
Right. And has anybody noticed how expensive Zoom storage is? So you got to download and put it into Google, your Google Drive. And so the storage of all this information cost is going up, not down.
Right.
So knowing that, with the saying that today's free is tomorrow's paywall, there's a lot of that's not being spoken about, but there's a lot of free features that we've been used to in all our different applications that all of a sudden that's a premium now. And you don't know and you got 10 days, you got 30 days. Right. We're increasing prices. It's like, oh, and if your business became dependent upon it, you built years, especially the people on Facebook, and Insta, you built years, decades.
Right.
You gonna really spend a weekend downloading all that?
Right.
Now I'm sure somebody is creating the software right now that, hey, for X amount, a couple hundred,
right,
Sync will download for you. So there's a pop-up service that didn't exist yesterday.
Right. Right.
That can now exist today. And so I think that's the other thing we're going to see. We're going to see a lot more instant product and services that serve for a specific time and period and then gone. Right. And so there's opportunity everywhere, but just recognizing we all have to be strategic about the platforms that we're on. How are we building? How are we owning our audience? This is one of the things I talk about, with inbox income. I said, with email, you're pretty much the algorithm of your subscriber list. You are the algorithm. Now, yes, Google and Yahoo and the engines, they play a role in whether you end up in spam, newsletters, promotions. Yes, they play a role, but ultimately you decide how often you show up. You decide messaging. And when you send that email, pretty much 100% of the people get it. Now, whether or not they open it, whether or not they know that they got it, that's a different story. But still, you're the algorithm of your inbox.
Sonia called it what it is. We've been squatters on social media. We got comfortable, fat, and happy off freemium features, visible boost, and easy reach. But now reach is tanked. Features we relied on for free have become a paywall without even warning us. And some of us are finding out that the mansion we thought we owned was just a tent on somebody else's land. Sonia said it plainly. Today's free is tomorrow's paywall. And if we're not prepared, that disruption isn't just inconvenient, it's catastrophic. I remember when I first started building my speaker brand, early YouTube, early Facebook, early blogging, I had posts that reached thousands effortlessly. It was exciting, and I felt seen. But then one day, it all changed. The algorithm shifted, and my reach dropped 90% overnight. I had no lists, no community I truly owned, just borrowed airwaves. That was my reckoning. That's when I began the revision, building an owned ecosystem, email lists. Using Talkadot, I was able to have a more strategic conversation with people who actually wanted to hear from me. My unsubscribe rates, they went way down because the folks who want to hear from me and the folks that I want to hear from were all curated and connected. Private coaching spaces, downloadable resources. I became the algorithm of my own inbox. Now, when the platform shifts, I don't flinch because I know what I own. And that's the renewal, confident leadership, even in chaotic markets. Let's talk straight from a business perspective. If your business or thought leadership is built on someone else's tech stack, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, you're at the mercy and their mercy. We have been saying this for years, and right now those platforms are in constant contraction. They're not focused on your reach, they're focused on profit margins, storage fees, and shareholder value. And that means policies can and will change without warning. Case in point, Meta's recent storage crackdown. People lost entire libraries of content, years of videos, whole online courses, and coaching funnels gone in 3 days. That's not a glitch. That's a pattern. Sonia described it perfectly. The era of instant disruption. And if we don't evolve now, we risk extinction in our own industries. We saw it with Vine. We saw it with Periscope. Remember Periscope? I use that all the time. We saw it with Twitter's X formation. And we're seeing it again with Meta. Contrast with the platforms that evolved. Look at how Substack empowered creators to own their list, or how ConvertKit gave creators tools to monetize email first, how Beehive is doing the same. Every executive I coach eventually runs into one of these two enemies: overwhelm or outsourcing trust to platforms they don't even own. Sonia Dumas gave us the wake-up call, whether it was her $79 piece of software or an inbox income strategy. The real leadership move is taking ownership. Ownership over your systems, ownership over your audience, and most importantly, ownership over your calm. Here's what I want you to remember on this week. You are the algorithm, not the platform, not the algorithm gods, you. And if you want support building that clarity rhythm, join us for the next Elevate Life Executive Strategy session. This isn't just theory. It is where we implement what you just heard. Because as I always say, we don't overcome adversity. We adapt through it. We innovate beyond it. And then we lead. Remember, the next Executive Strategy session is on June the 26th. So go forth, inspire your world. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.